Aragorn. You speak his name, and already the wind seems to still. Even now, long after the War of the Ring, after the passing of kings and the fading of my people, that name holds a power unlike any other in the tongues of men. You know him as King Elessar, Elfstone of the House of Telcontar, the reunited king of Gondor and Arnor, a mighty lord, a warrior of renown, a friend of elves, and a bane to Shadow. But before all that, before crowns and councils, before the sword Andúril was reforged, and long before the white tree blossomed once more in the courts of Minas Tirith, he was Estel. Though that was but a veil over a brighter flame. Truly you have chosen a tale worth the telling. Come, friend. Yes, come closer to the fire. Let us ease ourselves into the evening and pour some wine. For I, Cerfindol of Rivendell, have walked the long road of many ages, and in all my years, few names burn more fiercely in memory than that of Aragorn, son of Arathorn, last of the chieftains of the Dunedain, and more. Now let me take you back to a time before the world knew him, before Gondor cried out for a king, before the Fellowship bore that dread burden into Shadow, before war came to all lands free and fair. Let us go back to the twilight of the Third Age. The year was 2931 in the reckoning of men. The northern lands had long been troubled. Arnor was no more, its glory shattered in war and decay, and yet a remnant endured, the Dunedain, those scattered heirs of Númenor's ancient line. They were few and hunted, wandering the wilds and guarding the borders of lands that had forgotten them, ever vigilant, ever silent. Shadows moved in the east, the whispers of the enemy stirred again, and darker things crept into the forests and moors. It was in that uneasy time that Arathorn II, chieftain of the Dunedain, took to wife Gilraen the Fair. She was young, barely 20, a tender bloom among the rugged boughs of her people, but her spirit was steeled with foresight, and her choice was bold. You must understand, the Dunedain were dwindling, their blood thinning, and it was said that in Arathorn's line alone did the flame of the old kings burn undiminished. He was the last, and there was little time. A year after their joining, a child was born, Aragorn, though we in Imladris knew him first as Estel, which means hope. The irony of that name would only become clear with time, but his joy was short-lived. Arathorn, ever defiant in the face of evil, fell to an orc arrow when Aragorn was but 2 years old. A cruel blow, and one which forced Gilraen, in grief and desperation, to flee with her son to Rivendell, our hidden valley of lore and healing. It was Lord Elrond who took them in. Ah, Elrond half-elven, wise beyond mortal ken, keeper of memory and guardian of the fading light. He had seen the rise and fall of empires, the sundering of brothers, the flowering and withering of hope, and yet he chose to shelter the child. Not because of pity, no. He knew what few others did, that this child, this orphan, was Isildur's heir, the rightful heir to the thrones of Arnor and Gondor, long thought lost. Elrond feared what might become of the boy if the enemy learned of him too soon, so he cloaked the truth. Aragorn was raised not as a prince, but as a ward of Elrond. Few knew his true lineage, even among the Eldar. I, Cerfindol, was one of the few. I watched him grow, slender and bright-eyed, swift of foot and sharp of wit. He would climb the trees like a squirrel and run with the elven youths like a stream over stones. There was laughter in him, but also gravity. Yes, even as a boy, Gilrain would often look at him with both love and sorrow in her eyes. And indeed, shadow followed him always. By the time he reached 20, the age when Elrond at last told him the truth, he was already marked by the weight of destiny. I remember that day well. The air in Rivendell felt heavier, as though the winds held their breath. When he emerged from Elrond's chamber, his eyes were changed. The boy was gone. In his place stood a man who bore a name older than most realms, Aragorn, son of Arathorn, heir of Isildur, and rightful king of Gondor and Arnor. He left Rivendell not long after, took to the wilds, sought knowledge, and tested himself against hardship. He fought in the service of Thengel of Rohan and under Ecthelion in Gondor, though they knew him not by his true name. Thorongil, they called him then, Eagle of the Star, a fitting title indeed. But I stray. Forgive an old elf who remembers too much. You asked of his early life, and I have spoken long already. Yet know this, Aragorn was not forged in palaces, nor crowned in ease. He was born to exile, shaped by loss, and tempered in the silent halls of Rivendell, where the past lingers like mist upon the waterfalls. You see, he was not merely the hope of men, he was the hope of all free peoples. And though he bore many names, in the end it was Estel that never left him. He was our hope, from the first breath to the last. Ah, so I see your curiosity continues to burn as brightly as this fire. Good. The night is young yet, and the stars wheel slowly above us, ever patient, ever watchful, like Varda's own eyes. Let us speak, then, of the long years between Aragorn's departure from Rivendell and the breaking of the storm that was the War of the Ring. Those were years of wandering, of learning, of hidden deeds, a king in exile, a warrior without a land, a shadow among shadows. Yet always he served the light. When Aragorn left Imladris after learning his true name and destiny, he did not go out with trumpets and banners. He slipped quietly from the valley, taking only what he needed. A sword and the ring of Barahir bound tight to his hand. His road was his own, but he was never lost, for his heart beat with the strength and purpose of old Númenor, the memory of Elendil and Isildur, and the silent blessing of Elrond himself. His first ventures led into the wilds of Eriador, where the Dúnedain still roamed. He sought out his kin, those rangers of the north who had kept the watchful flame of their line alive for centuries. Among them, he took up the mantle of leadership, but not by command, nor by lineage alone. He earned it, quietly, humbly, through skill, wisdom, and tireless courage. I remember when he returned to Rivendell, clad in travel-stained grey. His voice was deeper and his shoulders broader. He had seen battle, no doubt, though he spoke little of it. But his eyes, they had changed most of all. They were the eyes of one who sees far and bears much. There was grief in them, and strength, but his wanderings were not limited to Eriador. He passed into Rohan in the days of Thengel King, father of Theoden. There he served in secret, giving his sword to the Mark, though few knew his name. They called him simply Thorongil. He earned the favor of Thengel and the love of the people, for he spoke their tongue with ease, and he fought with unmatched valor. But he didn't linger long. South he rode next, into Gondor, to the city of stone and silver, Minas Tirith. Ah, I have seen that city many times, but Aragorn saw it with the eyes of a king-to-be, though he revealed it to none. he entered the service of the steward Ecthelion II, father of Denethor, and rose swiftly in rank. It is said that he rode often with the rangers of Ithilien, striking at the forays of Mordor, and once even led a daring assault upon Umbar. Yes, Umbar, the black haven of the Corsairs. There, under cover of night, he burned their fleet and slew their captain with his own hand. Such was the blow he dealt that the Corsairs did not trouble Gondor's coasts again for many years. Yet when glory might have been his, Thorongil vanished. He returned not to courts or cities, but to the wild, to paths no map dared mark. He walked under the shadowed boughs of Mirkwood. He passed into the mountains of shadow and journeyed into Harad, far beyond the knowledge of the West. What he saw there, few know. He spoke of it only rarely. But from those lands, he returned leaner, harder, and wiser. He had glimpsed the enemy's reach and his cunning. And yea, through all these long years, he bore another burden still. Love. For in the twilight woods of Lorien, he had met Arwen Undomil. Yes, daughter of Elrond, even-star of her people. She who bore the light of Luthien in her eyes. Their love was not born quickly. It was the slow kindling of fire between mountain and star. She gave her heart to him, though it meant death to her. Elrond was grieved, for he knew what choice his daughter would face. He said to Aragorn, "She shall not be the bride of any man less than the king of both Gondor and Arnor." A heavy condition, but Aragorn did not shrink from it. Rather, it gave new steel to his purpose. He would win a throne not for power, but for love, and for the healing of the world. In those days, he returned to Rivendell only in secret, for the enemy stirred mightily. The Nazgul moved again. Dol Guldur darkened. Sauron's spirit, long hiding in the east, had now declared himself openly in Mordor. And still the world did not know Aragorn. He was the watchful shadow behind every border, the unseen blade that slew servants of darkness in forgotten woods. He aided Gandalf, the Grey Pilgrim, in many secret errands. Together they searched for Gollum, the tormented creature who had once borne the ring. Long they hunted, through Mirkwood, across the Emyn Muil, and into the wastes beyond Mordor. At last, Aragorn found him in the dead marshes and brought him captive to Thranduil of the woodland realm. It was bitter work, but necessary. He was there, always, guarding the edges of shire and dale, slaying fell beasts in the hills, warning villages of raids and keeping dark things from creeping too near to light. And so the years turned. Quiet years, but not idle. The world sat upon the brink, and the king-in-waiting walked beside it, ever watchful. For he knew the day would come when he must step from the shadows and reclaim what had been lost. And that day did come, as all things do, with a whisper, and then with thunder. But that is the next chapter, is it not? The road to Bree, a broken sword, a ring, and a council. Shall I tell you next of the prancing pony, of how the heir of Isildur came at last to Frodo Baggins, and the great tale began? Then add another log to the fire, friend, for there is still much to say, and the night is ours. We have spoken of Aragorn's youth, his wanderings, and his quiet labors before the world knew him. Now we come to the time of revelation, when the hidden heir cast off his cloak of secrecy and stood tall in the light, as king, warrior, and hope of the West. So let us walk with him now, into the shadow that fell upon the world. In the year 3018 of the Third Age, Aragorn was in the wilds near Bree, still watching over the Shire. Though the hobbits knew him not, he knew them well. The blood of Númenor guarded their borders from nameless threats, and none more watchfully than Aragorn. It was there, at the Prancing Pony, that he first met Frodo Baggins, bearer of the One Ring. Disguised still as Strider, he watched them from shadow until events forced his hand. The Nine were abroad, the Nazgûl, wraiths of Sauron, and the ring was drawing them like wolves to scent. Aragorn revealed himself to Frodo and his companions and became their guide through the wilds. He fought for them at Weathertop. He tended them at the ford of Bruinen. And at last, he brought them to Imladris, for the world was moving now, and the time of hiding was over. At the Council of Elrond, the truth of the matter was laid bare. The ring must be destroyed, and only in the fires of Mount Doom could that be done. Aragorn stood revealed there before many, Boromir of Gondor, Legolas of the Woodland Realm, Gimli son of Glóin, and others. He declared his lineage plainly. I am Aragorn, son of Arathorn, and if by life or death I can save you, I will. And thus the fellowship was born. He journeyed with them into the mines of Moria, through the loss of Gandalf in shadow and flame, into the fair woods of Lothlorien, and down the Anduin. He fought beside them, bore their burdens, and when the fellowship was broken at Amon Hen, he rose into his greatest trial. Boromir fell defending Merry and Pippin, and Aragorn chose to pursue the orcs who took them. He, Legolas, and Gimli hunted across Rohan, through fen and forest, to Fangorn. There they met a returned Gandalf, no longer the grey, but the white. Together they rallied to Rohan's aid, arriving in time to fight at Helm's Deep, where Aragorn stood beside King Theoden against the vast hosts of Saruman. It was there that many saw for the first time the fire of the West burning in his eyes. Even in darkness, he didn't yield. He rode out against death itself, and survived. From there he passed to Isengard, then to the paths of the dead. Ah yes, that fell place. To fulfill the ancient oaths Isildur had claimed, Aragorn dared to walk the road no living man had trod in an age. Beneath the mountains he summoned the dead men of Dunharrow, the oath-breakers who had betrayed the king of old. With the reforged sword, Andúril, flame of the west, he claimed their allegiance. At Pelargir on the Anduin, they swept down upon the corsairs of Umbar and broke them. And when the black sails were seen approaching Minas Tirith, it was Aragorn who stood upon the prow. At the battle of the Pelennor fields, he fought like Elendil reborn. With Mithrandir, with Éomer, with the sons of Elrond, and the knights of Dol Amroth, he broke the siege of Gondor. Yet even with victory, he claimed no throne. Not yet. He waited until the final battle. At the Black Gate, Aragorn led the host of the West in a last stand against the darkness to draw Sauron's eye and give Frodo the chance he needed. He fought not for glory, but for others. And in that moment, when all seemed lost, the ring was unmade. After the fall of Barad-dûr, Aragorn entered Minas Tirith in humility. There he was crowned by the hand of Gandalf, not as a conqueror, but as a servant king. His name became Elessar, the Elf Stone, a name given him long ago by Galadriel, and he was hailed as Envinyatar, the Renewer. He ruled not only Gondor, but also reunited Arnor in the north, and brought peace to lands long broken. He restored the White Tree, the very symbol of Gondor's ancient light, and it bloomed again upon the slopes of Mindolluin. And at last, Arwen came to him. She forsook her immortality and wed him under the sky of summer, upon the fields of Gondor. It was a wedding of joy, such as had not been seen since the elder days. Together they ruled long, in wisdom and strength, and the fourth age was born, and under Elessar the world was healed. But even kings must pass. Aragorn reigned for 120 years, and when his time drew near, he laid down his life with dignity. He spoke with Arwen, with Eldarion his son, and with his people. Then he passed beyond the circles of the world, at peace. He was buried in the House of Kings, beside Arwen, who in her grief faded from the eyes of men and died in Lothlorien, where no light lingered but memory. And so ends the tale of Aragorn, son of Arathorn, son of the Dunedain, a child of exile, a king of men, a friend of elves, a bane to evil, a warrior, a healer, a lover, and a legend. And I, Cerfindol of Rivendell, was honored to know him, to see the child Estelle become the King Elessar. If ever a man bore the weight of the world with grace, it was he. So let the fire die down now, and carry his memory with you, as I have carried it through the long years. For though his body lies beneath white stone, his legacy walks beside us still. In every green field, every free land, every starlit sky. And that, my friend, is the mark of a true king. Now rest your head, friend, and let the lullabies of Rivendell carry you into peaceful dreams beyond our world, until our next meeting.